Julieta Steinhauer, and I am teaching a module, an ancient history module that is entitled Slavery in the Classical World. It's an advanced seminar. So an advanced seminar is a one-term seminar that students can choose in their second and final year. And the modules are designed to give students the opportunity to study in depth a historical individual or a region or a theme. And in my case, that would be slavery in the ancient world. Well, the great thing about the advanced seminars is that they offer plenty of opportunities to work with primary sources, and students learn how to engage in scholarly debates and how to present their research in their findings in class. A skill that is, I think, invaluable for the job market, for example. So being able to really research a subject and then present it and make it your own. And I think another advantage of advanced seminars is that they run only over one term, and you can give students a great opportunity to study an historical era that they never have done or don't know whether they will like or whether it interests them. So they can approach it through a theme without being sort of bound for the entire year like you have with other courses. And they can, in a way, mix and match their advanced seminar. So say something ancient in the first term and something completely modern in the second term. So that's quite nice, I think. So this course is designed to provide an understanding of slavery in the ancient world, but in dialogue with New World slavery. So we cover the ancient philosophical ideas and views, such as what is slavery in the ancient world, and how did the ancients define it, how do we define it, and what is the difference, for example, between serfdom and slavery. We look at questions such as why the ancient Greeks and Romans never thought about abolishing slavery and how that then happened in the New World. We think about race and ethnicity and ask whether this played a role in the ancient Greek world and Roman world. But we also look at very practical questions such as what types of works or labors were assigned to slaves in the ancient world and what were the practicalities of manumission, for example. So this module is assessed by two 2,500 word essays. So two short essays on a huge variety of questions that students can choose from. And they are encouraged to also give a presentation in class, but of course that's not possible for everyone.
I'm Amy. I'm a second year and I'm doing the Slavery in a Classical Age advanced seminar. I'm mainly interested in ancient and medieval history. Modern history is not really my thing, even early modern's kind of. But I really wanted to learn about kind of the origins of and the classical ideas about slavery, especially because of the huge surge in Black Lives Matter protests in the summer following the murder of George Floyd. So I really wanted to kind of get a kind of ancient perspective on something that's still an issue today. And the module was really good for that because there's a lot of kind of comparisons between classical slavery and antebellum American slavery. So that would be like the kind of transatlantic slave trade and things like that. I mean, aside from obviously all of the historical knowledge that I've kind of absorbed through discussions and readings and stuff, I've learned a lot about time management because the two essays that you have to do for an advanced seminar, obviously you also have a lot of other deadlines kind of around those, and sometimes they can coincide, which means that you have to really be kind of on the ball with planning stuff and with making sure you get all the readings done and all of that. I think as well, there's so much of it is centered around discussion. It's kind of improved my confidence quite a lot because, you know, in order to learn, you really do have to actually engage with the material, but that's been really helpful. I would say also the time management. I think this module in particular, it's some of the content is a little bit more difficult just because it's ancient history. So if you haven't got, I would say that you'd be fine if you didn't have a background in ancient history, because I know lots of people who took the module and hadn't done ancient history before. So I wouldn't worry about that. But I would say that think getting your head around that can be quite difficult, because the ancient mindset, the ancient kind of perspective, if that exists, it can be kind of hard to get your head around that, especially when thinking about things like slavery, because the mindset is so kind of alien to us, because obviously a lot of the slavery was quite integral to various ancient societies, so they found a lot of ways to justify it, and I think it's, it can be quite difficult to kind of read that sort of thing when it's talking about such a kind of abhorrent concept. So I really enjoyed learning about the Spartacus rebellion in 71 BC. So most people will have heard of Spartacus, kind of generally, and there's a lot of myths surrounding him. He's kind of elevated to this figure of, kind of freedom and rebellion. But then looking at kind of the sources about that, so Plutarch, I think, it's quite eye-opening, because Spartacus is obviously a very kind of charismatic figure, but he's also completely voiceless in history. We have no idea, what his actual aims were, and we don't really know how kind of in charge of things he was, because we don't have anything written by him. We know that he did right things, but we don't really know what he was going for exactly with that rebellion, whether he was kind of trying to have a coup, or whether he was just trying to kind of run off into the hills. It's quite open to interpretation, which was really interesting. So we've done 2 essays. So my first one was on the moral concerns of ancient philosophers, kind of thinking about slavery. So I looked at Aristotle, Seneca, and Augustine. So that's a Greek, a Roman, and a late Roman Christian. So that was eye-opening, just because you kind of, there's these 2 movements. So there's Stoicism, which Seneca's kind of in charge of, and then there's kind of the birth of mainstream Christianity with Augustine. And you'd expect both of those movements, just because of the rest of how they are, you'd expect them to be more strongly against slavery than they actually are. So it's kind of, it was eye-opening to realize that actually a lot of ancient philosophers and theologians didn't really have any moral concerns about slavery. Then I did another essay more recently on the Spartacus rebellion and the other servile wars. So there were 2 servile wars which were led by other people, and then there's the Spartacus one, and they kind of take place like once per generation for 3 generations, and then there's just no slave revolts after that. So I was kind of looking at why there were so few slave revolts in antiquity, with a case study of the servile wars in Spartacus. I would probably say pick your topics early, because this means that you can prioritize readings. Because there's no exam, you can kind of, you still have to do all of the readings because you've got to be able to talk about them. But it's helpful to kind of know when you're going to need to pay like really close attention to the sources that you're looking at, and really close attention to what the people are saying in the seminars, because they're often an hour and a half or 2 hours long. You want to kind of have some direction with your note taking, both in class and when you're doing the readings, and it can be really helpful to know what you're going to be writing about in a few weeks, because that's, it just makes life a lot easier for you. I'd say as well, make sure you actually go to essay planning and feedback meetings, because this is the person who will be grading your essays. So if you go to a meeting before you write it, they're going to tell you to an extent what they want what they want from you, and then afterwards, obviously the feedback, especially with your first essay, that's going to tell you, how to get an even higher mark on your second essay. But yeah, that's pretty much it.